Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from what I normally do. It's going to be kind of like a story time video. I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about my personal history, and I know some of you have been wondering about the scar on my neck and things like that. So it's come time for me to share that part of my life with you guys. And it's something that I've been wanting to do. I just wanted to wait till the right time. And I feel like that it is finally at the right time to share this with you guys. So this is going to be like a story time video. So I wanted to, I guess it's been very hard for me to decide where to start the story, how I should tell it, and those types of things. But basically, what happened was back in 2015, I became very ill. This is not my norm. I'm normally a very healthy person. I know I'm overweight, but with that aside, I don't have a lot of health issues. I don't have the health issues that normally come with being obese. Don't have high blood pressure. I don't have diabetes. I'm relatively healthy. I've never had the flu. I've never had chicken pox. I never get sick. And so I became very ill in July, and it was July the 28th, 2015 to be exact. And basically what happened was I woke up to get ready to go to work that morning, and I realized that something was amiss with my breathing, like I couldn't breathe very well, but it wasn't a panicking situation. I just thought, I'm getting bronchitis, I'm getting an upper respiratory infection, because at the time I was a smoker. I was a heavy smoker. I could smoke a pack to 2 packs a day. So I thought, I'm just getting sick or whatever, and I went ahead and got ready for work, just like normal, went on into work, and as I got there, I realized that I was steadily getting worse, and it was quickly becoming really bad. And where I worked at, I worked at a nursing home, and I'd done human resources and payroll, and so it was time to get payroll processed and get put out that day. So it was very important that I was there because we had a new payroll system, and the other payroll lady hadn't really processed it yet on that system. So I just felt like I needed to be there to help get that going. So I went ahead and decided that I would help walk her through the payroll system, and as we were doing that, I was just steadily getting worse and worse, and I couldn't catch my breath was the problem. I just felt like I was out of breath all the time, and I couldn't really catch my breath, and if I moved or done anything, it became a lot worse. So by around lunchtime, I had decided that I couldn't take it anymore. I started becoming physically ill and hurting all over, just physically. And I live in one city and I worked in another city, and they were an hour away from one another. And my husband also works in the same city that I do, but he works on the opposite end, which could be 30 minutes to an hour away as well. Luckily, my parents live about 10 minutes from where I worked at the time. So it was a very hot day, very humid outside, and my fear was, if I made it to the car, that sitting in the hot car while it cooled off, I would never catch my breath and the humidity would just defeat me. So I decided that it was a good idea to call my parents to come and get me. And they came. I called my mom and I was like, I need you to come and get me. I don't feel good and I can't breathe. Something's wrong. And my mother knew right away for me to call her and tell her that was a huge situation, and for me to be saying I'm sick was a big deal. So they came and got me. I opted to go to a Walgreens clinic here locally, or in the city that I worked in, and go to that clinic just to see what was going on. I waited for about an hour, and there was still like several people in front of me, and I told her I just couldn't do it any longer. So we got out to the car and we decided to go to bring me home, and we called my husband at that point to meet me at the house. Once I got here, we called my doctor and got me an appointment later on that afternoon. I think it was around 5 o'clock, somewhere around that time. Got in to see them, and they done a chest x-ray. They couldn't get my oxygen up above 80 at that time. She was telling me that I needed to go to the hospital, and of course I was fighting it the whole way because that's the last thing I wanted to do was go to the hospital. But ultimately I ended up having to go because there was no other choice. So I go to the hospital, and they immediately see my size, and they think I have a blood clot in my lung. You know, they first want to treat what they see. So they done a CT scan and all these things to try to find a blood clot. There was none. Ultimately, they decided that I had bilateral pneumonia and that they were going to admit me into a room because even with a full face mask, my oxygen at this time, they could not get above 70. So it just kept going down. So I was in a room, and it just doesn't seem like it was no time after I got in the room that the nurse came, wanted to put me in ICU because my oxygen kept getting even worse, I guess. At this point, I started going in and out, not knowing what was going on all the time. And I remember fighting them that I didn't want to go to ICU because I knew in ICU that your family can't stay with you the whole time. So I finally struck a deal that if my husband could stay with me in the room all night, that I would go, and they were okay with that. So we went to ICU, and I remember them putting like a BiPAP machine on me, and it was on 100%, and it still wasn't, doing its trick. Then they started talking about they wanted to put me on a ventilator. Well, I had told my husband on the way to the hospital that I was going to die, that this was it, that I wasn't going to make it, that he needed to call my parents and have them come back because I wasn't going to make it. What I hadn't told everybody was about a week prior to that, something just told me that I was going to die. And I don't know why, and I had been feeling that way all week, that I was going to die. But I had made my peace with it because I had been, I grew up Christian, grew up in church. I grew up as a Baptist, believed in God my whole life, loved God my whole life. But, I had backslid a lot. And the last 6 months before I got sick, I feel like God and the devil had been really battling with me about which way I was going to turn. And ultimately, God won the battle. And I had made peace with the fact that, I knew where I was going if I passed, and I was fine. So I just wanted to spend as much time with my family and my husband as possible. So to put me on a vent was not an option in my mind, because in my mind I'm thinking, once I'm on the ventilator, I'm dead, and because I could no longer spend any more time with my family. I didn't see me waking up from the ventilator, because I honestly thought that this was it, that I was dying. Well, they kept begging me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but now I know that the doctors were very worried that I was going to have a heart attack, because the stress that I was putting on my body from not being able to breathe, my oxygen had gotten down to around 60, and, the doctor was like, she's going to have a heart attack any moment. So my mom had begged me, and finally I agreed to be put on the ventilator. But I told them that I would not do it until they called my preacher, and my preacher came and prayed with me. So the preacher came. The last thing that I remember before getting put on the ventilator was the feel of my hand in his and him praying for me. And I remember wanting my mom or my husband to be with me when they put me on the ventilator, but of course that's not an option. I did wake up at some point while they were putting the ventilator in, because I remember the nurses holding me down, and me trying to get up, and the nurse talking about how strong I was, and her just trying to tell me that it was going to be okay. But I was in fight mode. I had stayed in fight mode the whole time. So they put me on the ventilator, and this was on July the 29th that they put me on the ventilator. I woke up August the 13th. So almost 2 weeks I was in a coma. And I woke up and I did not know what had happened. I didn't know how long I had been out. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my legs. At the time that I woke up, nobody was in the room. I was in ICU at this time. I had no idea what hospital I was in because it was totally different from where I was when I went to sleep. I just had no idea, and I tried to call out. I couldn't talk. I didn't know why I couldn't talk, and normal me would have at this point freaked out. You know, I can't talk, I can't move, I don't know where I am, nobody's here, what's going on? But I was so drugged, I guess I just passed back out. The next time I woke up, my family was around me, and the first thing I wanted to know was, why can't I talk? Well, in order to get me off of the ventilator, well, I was still on the ventilator, but in order to pull the ventilator out of me, they had to put a trach in me. And that is what all of this is from, is they put a trach in. Because if I had to come off of that ventilator because I had been on it the maximum amount of time allowed, and my body would have started growing around it or rejecting it or what have you. So they couldn't wake me up to get me off the ventilator because I wasn't responding. You know, evidently while I was out of it, they kept telling, you know, my husband and my parents at some point that, you know, I wasn't going to make it, that there was nothing else they could do, that they don't know why I just quit responding. And, you know, they had given up, that I was going to die. I have a book that people had wrote in when they came and visited me. And, you know, there's passages in there from my mom whenever they told her that I wasn't going to make it. And her just, you know, writing this stuff about how I, you know, at this point she thinks I'm not going to be here any longer. And it was so hard to read. Of course, I still get choked up about it. But, you know, everybody was praying for me the whole time. They had started a prayer page on Facebook. I had so many of hundreds of people praying for me that I didn't even know. It was just crazy. So they told them that they needed to make a decision to either let me go or to do the trach. They knew that my wishes were that I never wanted a trach. I never wanted any of this stuff to be done. But my husband couldn't see fit to let me go. He wanted me to be around, and if there was any chance to save me, he wanted to take it. So he made the decision, and he made a right decision, I can say now. But he made the decision to go ahead with the trach. But they still didn't know at this point if there would be any brain damage from, you know, lack of oxygen. They didn't know if I would ever walk again. You know, the doctors couldn't really tell them anything. They said that I would probably need 24-hour care for the next year, if not longer. They just really didn't know if how I would be. So they were taking a big gamble. And what I know now is it wasn't a gamble. It didn't matter what the doctors did, what the doctors didn't do. The Lord was behind this 100%. He saved me. It ended up being that I had gotten MRSA in my lungs, which is, I don't know if you know what a staph infection is, but staph infection is where the bacteria gets from a place on your body that it's supposed to be into the tissue of your body, and that causes a staph infection. Well, if that bacteria gets in your bloodstream, it turns from a staph infection to MRSA. And mine had gotten in my lungs, which got into my bloodstream, which caused pneumonia complicated by MRSA. And it basically was because I had worked in a healthcare setting since I was 16. Anybody that works in healthcare has a lot of staph in their nose, and it's colonized. And the pulmonologist just told me, he said, there's no explanation for it. He said, just one day I inhaled, and the MRSA or the staph didn't stay in my nose where it was supposed to be. It went to my lungs, and he said it will probably never happen again. It could, but he said it probably never would. Most people that have this, that go through what I went through, don't make it. They pass away. People that are younger than me, people that are more healthier than I am, they don't make it. The mortality rate is very grim. And I actually, a friend of my husband's that he worked with, after I got better, got the same thing that I had at 27 years old, and he passed away. He didn't make it. It was at that point that it really hit home at how blessed I was, and why the Lord chose to save me, I did not know. I still am not 100% sure to this day why. I'm sure when it comes time, He will tell me, what His purpose for me is. But I always felt like I needed to share that with you guys, because that was part of the journey that brought me to YouTube. That illness, even though I did make it and I did get better, it's changed my life forever, in good ways and bad ways. It has brought me closer to the Lord. I feel closer now than I ever have been. I've always felt like I was loved by the Lord, and that I knew the Lord. But it wasn't until this happened that I really felt touched by Him. And I can just talk about God and the love that He has for us, and it makes me emotional, and I cry because I feel it so deeply now that I didn't before. So, number one, I can tell you that He's still in the business of healing and creating miracles, because He created a huge one in my life. I was in the hospital from July the 28th all the way to September the 10th when I went home. And I'm looking down because I have notes, because of course being in the hospital like that and on the drugs that I was on and in and out of the coma and stuff, I don't remember dates and things really well. So I have to have this timeline jotted down because it's hard for me sometimes to fathom. I know that some of you have probably noticed in my videos that I'll talk and then I pause and take deep breaths. And that is part of what I'm left behind with from becoming ill. I still have some respiratory issues in that I get winded very easy. Sometimes it is difficult still to breathe sometimes. I think that I might have some like scar tissue or something in my lungs. I'm not sure, but I know that I have problems. So I'm not 100%, but I can tell you that I'm very thankful to be where I am. The doctor prepared my family for that I was going to need care 24 hours around the clock for the next year, that it would probably take 6 months to a year before I got up and walked. I can tell you that by the time I went home, I was already walking. I wasn't walking very well, but I was walking. And by October, I was able to walk and care for myself as much as possible. I still have physical limitations in that I can't get around very well because of my breathing issues still. To share with you guys what I'm about to share, it's very difficult, but I feel like I just need to share it with you. When I go to the store, I can't walk around the store. I actually ride the carts because I get so out of breath. Being big was not a problem before, but because of my respiratory limitations now, it is a problem. I don't know that I'll ever be 100% back to the way I was, but that was what brought me to YouTube, as I was getting depressed and I didn't know what to do with my time. I was no longer working because that's not really an option for me with my limitations right now. I can't. So I was getting very depressed, and I seen a couple of other YouTubers, and Graveyard Girl was one of them, Bunny Meyer. And she talked about how YouTube had helped her through some dark times. And I had thought about doing YouTube a couple of times throughout the years, and I just never done it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. And it does give me something to look forward to and something to invest in as far as my time. And it just gives me a little bit of structure in my day. So that's what kind of brought me to YouTube. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this story, and I hope that somebody has helped somebody. If somebody is struggling with anything out there, or if you have some health issues or a loved one, know that the Lord is there, and all you have to do is pray and lift that person's name up in prayer, or yourself. He is there and ready and willing to heal and help all of us, and that's what He wants. He wants us to just ask Him, because He wants to give us our heart's desires. So just know that He is there for everyone, and I just hope that maybe this video has, helped somebody else that may be in a situation, and maybe help them become stronger, or just something, just like, I got a little bit of positivity from watching Bunny, and got the gumption to get on here and do a YouTube video. So I just hope that this video helps somebody, and I hope it does answer some questions that you guys might have had about me. But I hope this doesn't skew the way you look at me or watch my videos or anything, or that my handicap takes anything away from that, because I'm not going to let my handicap take anything away from who I am. So I hope you guys don't either. But I just felt like this was something important to share with you all. And yeah, so if you have any questions or anything like that that you would like me to answer, you can put those in the comments below. I don't care a bit to do like a Q&A video later if I get enough questions. So that would be something that I would probably that I would love to do, actually. So if you do have any questions, just comment and put those below, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. God bless.